What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Mikase Sukase, and I am your host, Nico House. I am a little bit late today on our podcast, but I promise you it is for good reason. If you have not, make sure that you go check out the interview that I did with H.A. Goodman on YouTube. We talk about, really everything from Democratic Party corruption to Russiagate and the recent developments, and some news that H.A. recently broke that I actually will be covering on this episode. We also talk about the gun conversation that has been surrounding the Parkland shooting in Broward County, which is a weird situation for many reasons, but it's a great conversation. Also today I had to interview Tim Black as well, and that interview will be going up on the YouTube page. So I know, like I said, I'm a little late, so if you have to listen to this on the way to work instead of on the way home from work, then I apologize. I'll try to get up extra early tomorrow and get you your your afternoon podcast before you get off. But as usual, I want to thank our patrons who donate monthly, our super chatters who donate on YouTube, and anyone who donates either your ear or your dollar. The show obviously could not go on without you and would not go on without you. So thank you all so much. Today we are going to have part 2 of our Russiapalooze discussion. There will probably be about a grand total of 4 parts to this discussion, because if I wanted to, I could talk about this for 2 or 3 hours. Okay, so for your good and for mine, I'm not going to. I'm going to try to break everything up piece by piece, so that, you know, if you want to listen to it broken down, you can do that, and also it will allow us to also tie in the breaking news of that day regarding Russiagate with what we already know regarding the indictments and how that little shitstorm is coming along. So there's been some more news that H.A. Goodman actually reported. It came from, I'm pretty sure I pronounced this wrong regularly, but I say Reuters. I'm pretty sure that's not how you pronounce it, but dog, you know what I'm talking about. You know, all right, you know. But so they reported that U.S. Special Counsel Mueller stepped up pressure on 2 former Trump campaign aides to cooperate with his probe into possible collusion with Russia, unsealing a criminal charge against a lawyer for lying in Mueller's investigations. The attorney, Alex van der Swijn, the son-in-law of one of Russia's richest men, pleaded guilty in U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. to a charge of lying to the special counsel's office. A U.S. judge set his sentence for April 3rd. The case involves work that van der Swijn, a 33-year-old Dutch citizen, performed in 2012 about Ukraine for Paul Manafort and Richard Gates, senior officials in Donald Trump's 2016 election campaign. The 2 former aides have been charged with conspiracy to launder money and failure to register as foreign agents in connection with work for a pro-Russia Ukrainian party. Oh my God. The charge against van der Swijn makes no reference to Trump's campaign or the 2016 election. What a surprise, people. But legal experts said that the charge would put more pressure on the former Trump aides to cooperate with Mueller as he looks into whether Russia tried to influence the election in favor of Trump by hacking the emails of leading Democrats and distributing disinformation and propaganda online. Last year, U.S. intelligence agencies found that Russia had meddled in the election, and its goals eventually included aiding Trump. Interesting. So you notice how the conversation went from the goal was to, they're saying that, remember, it used to be the clear goal was for Donald Trump to be elected, and Russia was 100% behind Donald Trump from the beginning. Now, and notice how they changed the wording in these types of things, people. You gotta be careful with that. Now they said last year, U.S. intelligence agencies, notice they don't say 17 intelligence agencies, and it's really only the FBI and the quote-unquote CIA, and those both come from anonymous sources, by the way, unverified. But the U.S. intelligence agencies found that Russia had meddled in the election and that its goals eventually included aiding Trump. Eventually. It's crazy how that story changes as more information comes out. You have to be careful with your words when you're facing multiple lawsuits of defamation, which many people involving this particular situation are, including BuzzFeed. But if you all, the people who listen to me, know that I have been saying this for how long? I said that the 13 indictments were not worth shit. They weren't worth the paper that was printed on. I said you took a bunch of random Russians who were part of a clickbait farm in St. Petersburg that have absolutely no connection to the Russian government. Well, I won't say absolutely no connection. If you're rich, you're connected to the government in some way, form, or fashion, usually. But and they indicted 13 random people, some of which haven't even worked at that internet agency since 2014. And then with this particular situation, you see an attorney who is being indicted on charges of lying to who did he lie to? I want to make sure I get this right. So he lied to Mueller's investigators. So he lied to the FBI, essentially. But he didn't lie about Russiagate. He didn't lie about Trump's connections to Russia. He didn't lie about taking money from Russia specifically. What he lied about was something to do with Paul Manafort in 2012. Now, mind you, even Paul Manafort right now is indicted, quote unquote. For Russiagate, right? No, absolutely not. In fact, he is indicted for nothing to do with Russiagate. And he is also being indicted. He's also being indicted under the belief that eventually he will play ball for Mueller's investigation. As you all know, this is literally the playbook for any major investigation. But what I think is insulting is the fact that they're portraying this as, oh, if we can get an indictment on someone, then clearly the person who is being actually investigated, which would in this case would be Donald Trump, if we can get an indictment on any of them, clearly that means that Trump is guilty, and we're getting closer to bringing him down, which is not the case. They're further. What these indictments have shown me is that they're grasping for straws while they're simultaneously grasping for air while they're stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Because if you really had control over this type of situation, if you really had control over what was going on, if the evidence was that clear, because remind you, if you're a CIA agent, right, or an FBI agent, and you go up to a newspaper, whatever, a newspaper, news outlet, broadcast network, and you say, hey, listen, I have this information and I can't, the information is so reliable, it is so factual, and it includes so many big players that I have to remain anonymous. But here is the paperwork, here is the proof, here is the letter, here is the recording, whatever. It's clear that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russian government because I have the proof. And if this is the CIA or the FBI, working within the Russian government or working with, close to the Russian government, some way, form, or fashion, whether it be as a spy or, for counterintelligence. This should have been open and shut. If the evidence was so overwhelming, then why do you have to indict 13 random business people? Why do you have to indict 13 random business people? Clickbait farm. Do you know who else has a clickbait farm? Mark Cuban. Is Mark Cuban Russian? No. Is Mark Cuban Cuban? Quite possibly. It would be really weird to have the last name Cuban and not be Cuban. But I don't think he is Cuban, funny enough. But that's not the point. The point is, one thing that is not talked about, or two things that are not talked about, is once again, the premise of this thing is that it was so blatantly obvious. It's so blatantly obvious that clearly Trump was guilty, and if you said anything to the effect of, well, maybe we should actually wait until we get some solid proof, then you were a Russian. But it was so blatantly obvious that if you ever question the narrative of the mainstream media, that you should be having blind faith, people, in your American institutions. That's what you should be doing. But that's not what's been happening. And they thought that if they said it enough, if they had Joanne Reed, if they had Rachel Maddow, if they had all of these talk, Anderson Cooper of the world, if we get Trump to say enough racist stuff, and then we get him to say something nice about Putin, then we won't even have to continue this investigation, and the Democrats will still win, and we get to keep our jobs. But nah, the American population isn't playing ball. Like I said, yes, retweets, could mean something, but Hillary Clinton used to get fake retweets from David Brock's bots all the time. It's not hard. I was having a conversation this morning with Garland Nixon and Lee Stranahan, and we were talking about how just eerie it is that you can't have a conversation, an objective conversation, without having to be like, it's like pick a side. Why can't we have a conversation where I can say, when somebody says, oh, do you like Trump? You think he's doing a great job? Actually, no, I don't think he's doing a great job at all. I think that he's been breaking a lot of promises to a lot of his supporters. And a lot of the policies that he's implemented has primarily hurt his base more than anybody else's. So yeah, man, so that's crazy what's happening with Russia. I'm like, what do you mean? Russia didn't want Trump to win. Why would they do that? Well, the business ties. I'm like, well, if business ties are going to incentivize a country to help somebody win, wouldn't it be the person who helped them get 20% of their oldest enemy's uranium? Well, in modern history anyway. And then they're like, oh, are you defending Trump? What is me stating a clear-cut fact, or not a fact, but me stating a pretty logical assessment, unless I'm crazy. What is me stating a logical assessment that is yet to be disproven, or even by the establishment or the neoliberals? It's yet to be addressed, let alone disproven. If the premise was business, why is he not, or why are we not talking about the Clintons? Well, we are, but why isn't the mainstream media? Well, we know why. We know why. They just indicted 13 random people. And I think another part of the conversation, this is the second thing that goes largely untalked about, and has been over the last couple of days, is the incentive aspect of it. As in, they're saying in the indictment, they say that clearly they put these memes in these groups to undermine Hillary Clinton, to bolster Donald Trump and to bolster Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein. But they attacked Ted Cruz, they attacked Marco Rubio, they attacked Hillary Clinton. How interesting. So what you're telling me is 1 establishment, 2 establishment, 3 establishment candidates, those are the ones that were easily targeted on social media. And I'm explaining why it's important. Well, 2 reasons why that's important too. But so the 3 establishment people who social media clearly disliked were the targets of funny memes that were probably mostly legitimate. While Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Jill Stein, Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, good guy, I'm so sorry, Bernie. Well, Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and Jill Stein, those 3 for some reason were getting positive memes. Once again, not Donald Trump this is Donald Trump of the Republican Party, Jill Stein of the Green Party, and Bernie Sanders of the Democratic Party / Independent. What is the one thing that all 3 of those campaigns, 2 things that all 3 of those campaigns have in common? 1, they're outside of the establishment, fringe candidates, right? They don't align with the establishment, or at the time they did not. They weren't, they were actively fighting the establishment and all making the bold claim to be different. Now that galvanizes a certain amount of support, but it also came from one particular type of campaign. That campaign was the social media campaign. Yes, people. Yes. So if I know for a fact that I have a candidate who is on social media, that's where they got their fame from. That is where the majority of their supporters from. They have so much support that they have an infinite amount of groups that can't even count or keep track of them all. And once again, Trump, Jill, Bernie had these. Hillary Clinton did not. Her groups were incredibly inactive. So if you have that many groups, now if I'm a clickbait organization, and of course at the end of the day, that's the bottom line is the bottom line. It's not only about getting people to click on my ads, but I need to get friends, I need to get traffic, I need to get followers, I need to get, subscribers, whatever. How would you do that? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I would figure out who social media likes in the height of a controversial election, which would be Jill Stein, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump. Then I would figure out who they dislike, which is pretty much anybody who's establishment. I would figure out which communities were forced to be built online because of how they were being portrayed in the mainstream media. Jill Stein, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump. And I would take advantage of that community because I know they're active and they're pretty much clicking on anything because, well, they spend all day on social media because that's the only where they can get their news. Now, why would I be incentivized to do any of that? Well, the indictment itself says that they were being paid $25 to $30 an ad. So clearly, there was a business model in place. One that is common sense to me. I feel like that's one of the smart strategies that I've heard. But people do that. It's not uncommon. Like, if you go on Facebook, there are fake sports articles written to promote things all the time. And guess who gets a lot of them? Myself. Why? Because I'm in a bunch of, I don't click on them, but I can recognize them and I see them a lot because I'm in a bunch of sports groups. I am in very specific sports groups with very specific teams and very specific players. And so, of course, or in a very specific sport. So what do you do when you're trying to target people who you know click on a lot of things? You figure out what they want to see, and then you replicate it. So they maybe follow your page, that they maybe like your videos, they maybe interact with you. This is common sense business. This is social media 101. And now, you know what could easily shut that entire conversation down? I mean, outside of the fact that the $25 an hour, the $25 or $30 per ad was paid for by none other than, yep, United States-based companies. What a surprise. What a surprise. That's sarcasm, by the way. I don't believe it was a surprise at all. But we could easily figure out whether or not there's some truth to this type of, this very, very common sense logic by the indictment letting us know, well, if this company has direct connections to Trump's campaign, then maybe we should look a little bit further. Oh, except for it explicitly says that there is absolutely no connection with Donald Trump's campaign. Then it explicitly says that there is it doesn't explicitly say, but it doesn't mention a connection with Putin, with the Kremlin, or anybody. So as far as we know right now, this company that was created in 2014, by the way, before anybody announced that they were running for president, we didn't even know that we kind of figured that Hillary Clinton was running. But Bernie Sanders had not announced, Hillary Clinton had not announced. We didn't even know what party, if Donald Trump was going to run, we didn't even know what party he was going to run under at this point. Hell, at that point, we still thought Barack Obama may have been an okay president. Seriously. So the whole argument has always been that this was about Donald Trump, Donald Trump. But this firm started in 2014, where many of the people are like low-level workers, people. They're trying to convince you that this is somehow linked to quote-unquote Russiagate. But it's not about that. It's about what I told you in the first article, or after we read the first article, which is that they're trying to fry a bunch of big fish. It's the same thing that the Steele dossier thing, but kind of like in reverse, if you will. Well, I wouldn't say in reverse, but actually no, it would be in reverse. So like with the Steele dossier, he bribed a bunch of people with money to get them to say whatever they could. Whether it's valid or not, whether it's real or not. What did James Comey call it? Salacious and unverified. That's pretty much how I feel about the dossier, considering that you just paid a bunch of people. Now, on the other side of this fence, Mueller's doing the same thing, except for he's not bribing people with money. He's bribing people with their lives and livelihood. So, of course, they may be a little bit more responsive, believe it or not. Now, we have even more reason to question this investigation, because now the DOJ has gotten involved in the handling of the Steele dossier, the Trump dossier, whatever you want to call it. Essentially, it looks like the facts aren't adding up, and some people omitted some things. And so Sessions actually commented himself, which, by the way, I don't really trust Sessions. But I do trust Republican pettiness, and I know that if Sessions wants to keep his job and go down in glory instead of in flames, which Donald Trump will ensure he does if he does not keep up with his end of the bargain, he will do a very good job of making sure this investigation goes as planned. Planned by Trump. I'm not Trump isn't an idiot. Trump wants the right outcome. And if they're going to manipulate the system for their benefit, Trump is going to do the same thing. That's what he does. I was talking to HA today, and I even said, yo, the Dems tried to con a con man and were surprised because they failed at it. It was like when what's the man's name? Lord Jesus, I forgot his name. But when Mayweather fought not Pacquiao, the last guy he fought, McGregor, there you go. See, showed you how much I watch UFC. But when he fought McGregor went into his ring. Mind you, same situation. McGregor went into his ring, talked the most shit about a realm of boxing or fighting that he had never done at that level. Whereas Mayweather has been literally tricking people into fighting his fight forever. That's how he was undefeated. Tricking people into fighting his fight. Putting on a persona to get you riled up to make mistakes when you're fighting his fight. You get what I'm... So then he talked himself up. He hyped himself up, right? Gets into the ring with Mayweather, and it looks like he is beating the hell out of him. Because he's kind of hitting him low, and the refs aren't calling it, and it looked like he wasn't going to get beat that bad. Oh, but what they don't tell you is that that's what Mayweather had always planned on happening. He wanted him to be high on himself. He wanted him to think that he was good. And then he knocked him out and beat the shit out of him. Is this not what Donald Trump did? You can call him a lot of things. You can't say he's stupid when it comes to strategy. Like, he's a con man. That's what he did. That's his career. You think you're going to be able to con people better than the man who became a billionaire from conning people? Come on, people. Yes, he's not the brightest when it comes to most things, I would say. But he is good at protecting his own ass. You can't deny that. So, we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow because there's going to be, obviously, more breaking news. And I don't want to, spoil all of it today. Plus, you need something to listen to tomorrow anyway. And with that being said, always remember, people, find your balance. Peace.